Picture a chemical tanker going down in the North Atlantic. The crew has minutes. They climb into a sealed orange capsule, pull the hatch shut behind them, and drop toward the water. And from that moment on, everything they need to stay alive is already inside that boat with them, not packed in a panic, not grabbed off a shelf on the way out. Decided years earlier by international law. Here is the part most people never realize. The survival kit inside a lifeboat is not chosen by the captain, or the shipping company, or the crew. It is written down in a global rulebook called the Life-Saving Appliance Code. And it is astonishingly specific. It tells you how fast a lifeboat must be able to travel. Fully loaded with people, it has to make 6 miles an hour for a full day straight. It tells you how many flares it must carry. It even tells you exactly how many tin openers must be on board. Today, we are going to open that capsule and walk through every single thing inside it, in the order you would actually reach for it, from the moment your ship is lost to the moment rescue finally arrives. Let's start. Before you've even left the sinking ship. One of the first things your hand finds inside that boat is a small box of anti-seasickness tablets. There are enough on board for every single person to take a dose every few hours for 2 full days. This sounds trivial. It is not. Seasickness makes you vomit, and vomiting drains fluid straight out of your body. In a survival situation, water is the most precious thing you have, and you cannot afford to lose a single drop of it. And here is the brutal logic behind it. Even if you have never been seasick once in your entire life, you take the tablet anyway, because it only takes one person being sick in a hot, sealed, swaying boat to set off everyone around them. One person becomes a chain reaction. The tablets are not about comfort. They are about protecting the entire crew's water supply. Now it is time to actually get away from the ship. The next piece of equipment you will use is the painter. A painter is simply a strong rope, and your lifeboat carries 2 of them. When the boat is stowed up on the ship, one painter is permanently tied to the front of it. This matters far more than it sounds. If the ship is still moving forward through the water as the boat goes down, that single rope holds the lifeboat's nose pointing straight ahead. Think of it like flying a kite. Keep tension on the string, and the kite stays steady, locked into the wind. Let the string go slack, and the kite tumbles, rolls, and crashes. The painter does exactly that job for your lifeboat. It keeps the boat tracking forward so the rushing water cannot catch the side of the hull and flip the whole thing over. When you are finally ready to break free of the ship, you release that painter. And that is precisely why there is a second one. A spare line you can use for almost anything. Towing a life raft across to your boat, tying off loose equipment. It quietly becomes one of the most useful objects you have. In fact, the rules say a loaded lifeboat must be able to tow a packed 25-person life raft behind it, and that spare line is how you would do it. So now you have pulled away from the ship. You are floating on open water, and your attention shifts to one urgent question. How do you make sure rescuers can actually find you? The instinct is to head for land, and the boat does carry an illuminated compass, so if you genuinely know that land is close in one direction, you can steer for it. And if the engine ever fails, the boat carries enough oars to row your way forward through calm water. But usually, the smartest move is the exact opposite. You stay. You stay right where your ship went down, because that is the precise spot rescuers will begin their search. The problem is that the ocean does not let you stay still. Wind pushes the boat. Current drags it. Waves shove it. Drift away from that position, and you drift away from your single best chance of being found alive. So you deploy the sea anchor. A sea anchor is not an anchor in the way you are picturing it. It does not sink, and it never touches the seabed. It is a large cone of heavy fabric, shaped a little like an open bucket, that you stream out into the water ahead of the boat on a line. It works like a parachute, but underwater. The same way a drag chute blossoms open behind a fighter jet to claw it to a stop down the runway, the sea anchor fills with water and drags hard against it. It slows your drift to a crawl, and because it pulls steadily from the front, it keeps your bow pointed into the wind and the waves, which makes the whole boat ride far more comfortable for everyone packed inside. And if that sea anchor ever tears or fails completely, you improvise. The boat carries a buoyant bailer and 2 buckets, mainly for scooping water back out of the hull. Tie one of those buckets to your spare painter, throw it over the side, and you have just built yourself a brand new sea anchor out of spare parts. Now here's something that will not make sense at first. Open the locker and you will find a complete set of fishing tackle. Hooks, line, the works. Every lifeboat on Earth is legally required to carry it. So your obvious assumption is that it's there for food. You're adrift at sea, surrounded by fish, so naturally you fish. Simple. Wrong. The fishing kit is not really there to feed you at all. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Eating raw fish actually works against you. Digesting all that protein pulls water out of your body, and dehydration will kill you long before hunger ever gets the chance. You would only ever fish for food if you had already secured a large, reliable supply of fresh drinking water. And most of the time, you simply won't have one. So why carry it at all? Morale. The fishing tackle exists to give people something to do, something to focus on, something that feels like progress. Hope and routine are what keep a crew alive through long days at sea, and a bored, hopeless crew is a crew in real danger. The kit feeds the mind, not the stomach. Now let's get you rescued. When help is out there searching for you, it is almost certainly searching with radar. So the lifeboat carries a radar reflector, and your job is to hoist it as high as you possibly can. A radar reflector uses the cat's eye effect. It catches the radar pulses sweeping across the ocean and throws them straight back toward where they came from. It is the same trick as the little reflector bolted to the back of a bicycle. It does not make any light of its own. It just bounces a car's headlights directly back into the driver's eyes, so a small, faint object suddenly screams for attention in the dark. You strap that reflector to an oar, or to one of the boat hooks, to get it as high into the air as you possibly can, because height is everything here. The higher it sits, the further away a ship's radar can pick you out of the empty ocean. And as rescuers close the distance, you've got an entire arsenal for grabbing their attention. There are 4 rocket flares that fire high into the sky and can be seen from miles away. There are 6 handheld flares for shorter range, burning fierce and bright against a dark night sky. For daytime, there are 2 smoke floats that pour out thick clouds of bright orange smoke, which is perfect for a search plane scanning the water from high above. On a sunny day, you've even got a signaling mirror to flash hard sunlight at a distant ship. At night, there is a powerful searchlight that cuts across the water, plus a separate torch with spare bulbs and spare batteries, so it never simply dies on you. And there is one quiet rule of thumb here. Once a ship has clearly spotted you, you stop dazzling its crew. They cannot help you if they cannot see. And then there is sound. A whistle, and on most boats an air horn as well. Because when fog rolls in and visibility drops to almost nothing, a light becomes useless. Sound becomes the only way left to tell the world, we are still here. But what if none of it works quickly? What if rescue takes days, not hours? Then you survive on the basics. The boat carries about 3 quarts of fresh water for every single person on board. That's roughly 6 water bottles each, and it may need to stretch across a week or more. To make it last, there may also be rainwater collectors, or solar stills that quietly pull fresh water out of plain seawater, using nothing but the heat of the sun. There's even a rust-proof measuring cup, so the water can be shared out fairly, drop by drop. For food, every person gets 10,000 kilojoules. That is the energy in roughly one large meal, handed to you and expected to last for days on end. It usually comes as dense, high-energy biscuits that taste a little like shortbread. You don't actually need much food to survive a few days. The ration is deliberately small, and that's by design. And finally, the boat carries tools for everything else that can go wrong out there. A first aid kit, a fire extinguisher for an oil fire, rescue quoits, which are buoyant rings on a long line that you can hurl out to anyone who has fallen into the water, thermal protective aids to wrap around anyone who has gone dangerously cold, 2 axes stored at each end so you could chop your way free of a stubborn rope, a jackknife, a basic set of tools for minor repairs, and yes, 3 separate tin openers, because the very last thing you want, days into a survival ordeal, is a tin of food you cannot physically open. There is even a survival manual and a printed card of rescue signals tucked on board, because nobody seriously expects anyone to keep all of this in their head while their ship is sinking out from under them. It is one less thing the crew has to remember in the worst moment of their lives. And here is the quietly astonishing part. Every single item we just walked through is the same, whether you are stepping off a luxury cruise ship or a rust-streaked chemical tanker. The same flares, the same biscuits, the same 3 tin openers. A global rulebook decided, deliberately, that every life at sea is worth the exact same survival kit. But notice we have only talked about one kind of lifeboat, the kind that is lowered gently down to the water on a pair of cables. There is another kind entirely, the bright orange capsule you see bolted to the back of a bulk carrier, and that one does not get lowered at all. It gets dropped. The crew straps in tight, and the entire boat free falls off the stern of the ship and slams into the ocean nose first. How anyone survives a deliberate plunge like that without snapping their spine on impact comes down to some genuinely clever physics. Subscribe.